Well, welcome back everyone to Radio Entrepreneurs, the show that features entrepreneurship and business in the year 2022. Hard to believe, I'll tell you. And as we regularly do on our show, we like to speak with Tom McNulty, attorney at Lando and Anastasi. Welcome back.
It's always good to be here.
Right. And I know you're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, an irritation every day for me and people I know, privacy, correct?
I am going to talk about data privacy, yes. But I'm going to talk about it, excuse me, from the perspective of what, entrepreneurs and budding businesses need to take into account as they set up things like their website and their, their financial collection of information, things like that.
Right. So
the United States has no particular, general data privacy law. They've got, HIPAA laws and things like that that cover certain types of information, but they don't have a general standalone, data protection policy or statute. Excuse me. In 2018, the European Union introduced a statute, a regulation called the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, that governs what businesses can do with the information they collect, and set some pretty stringent standards. And I'm not necessarily going to go into the GDPR today, but that seems to have been the triggering event for various states to start taking the issue up themselves. And for people going into business in the United States, there's some of these laws that are in effect, and there are a number of states that are considering putting laws like this into effect that will need to be taken into account. The first state that actually passed one was California. They passed the California Consumer Privacy Act several years ago now. Excuse me, and it creates some restrictions on what you can do with data and some rights for consumers to dictate what you can and can't do with data that businesses collect on you. And the sort of basic rights are: you have a right as a consumer to know what data is being collected and who it's being shared with. You have a right to demand deletion of any personal information that a business collects on you. It's in sort of an opt-out provision, so they can collect data on you up to the point that you ask them not to. However, for children, data collected on children, businesses in California can't sell that data without express authorization. So that part of it is opt-in. You have a right to be notified before or at the point that data is collected of what type of data they're collecting, what they're doing with it. And there's a kind of a last right where if you choose to enforce any of these rights, to have your data deleted or to have your information given to you in terms of what they're doing with it, businesses can't discriminate against you. So they can't offer differential pricing based on whether you let them sell your data or not. They can't make you waive any of these rights if you sign any kind of an agreement as part of a purchase that purports to waive these rights. That provision will be deemed unenforceable. So it kind of creates a regulatory scheme that requires businesses to do a lot more in terms of tracking and managing and mapping their data and being able to know whose data they've got, being able to go in and delete individual people's data, things like that. That really kind of creates some I don't know, headaches probably is the appropriate word for it. Some headaches when you're trying to, establish a business. So like I said, California did this several years ago. They've actually passed a revised version that's going to go into effect in January of next year. Virginia and Colorado also have passed data privacy statutes that are fairly similar. The California statute is pretty similar to the European Union's GDPR. And it looks like most of the states that are doing data privacy are going to model it after this as well. So these are all provisions that will basically come into play likely over the next several years in most, if not all, states.
So why does it take so long for it to come into
excuse me.
California?
Well, a lot of times if they pass the law, they'll give several years for businesses to sort of gear up in terms of how they're going to comply with it. They don't want to have it take effect immediately and start fining businesses without giving them a chance to, get their act together, really.
Uh, Does it say a lot about certain states like the one we're in that we don't have that law yet? I mean, this is Virginia, California.
Well, Massachusetts is there is a bill that is pending. It's in committee, which may mean that, action is taking place, or it may be that that's where bills go to die. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, California is pretty progressive on this stuff. Massachusetts, I would expect not to be too far behind. As of right now, there's all but 14 states either have or are contemplating some sort of general data protection statutes.
I was surprised, that you said Virginia. Yeah, especially, in the recent news about Virginia, not having masks and vaccination mandates anymore, trying to remove that. So I thought Virginia would be a state that would try to have less controls then.
I guess one way of looking at it is it's shifting sort of the rights balancing towards the individual and away from the government and business. That would be, I guess, the way to sort of rectify those two things.
Well, so how difficult is this for businesses to comply to, since it takes so much time? Is this going to put hardship on some companies?
Yeah, a lot of the statutes, the California, actually all three of the statutes that have been enacted and a lot that are being considered have certain notification requirements. So you're going to have to alter your website to notify people of the types of data you're collecting. I'm sure every time I open a website these days, there's a little, bar at the bottom telling me to click here to look at our terms and conditions, and click here to accept them, and click here to allow us to, use cookies, and, all that sort of thing. That's all come into being primarily through these types of statutes. Most of them have requirements that the rights that are given to you and the means of enforcing those rights are clearly stated. Opt-in buttons, opt-out buttons, things like that. It can't be something that's complicated. It can't be something that you have to, send in an envelope, written request months in advance, that kind of thing. So it will require, looking at how the websites are built. It will require looking at, what you're doing with the data you have. Excuse me. Like I say, you got to be able to, to be able to delete somebody's data, you have to be able to identify whose data everything is. So it may require sort of better data mapping, better data management, things like that. And of course, if you're in the business of collecting data and selling it, which, a surprising number of entities do that.
So I have a last question. So assuming that this law is pending in a lot of states,
yes,
should companies start to prepare now?
Well, I mean, that's sort of an interesting question. One of the universals across these is they protect individuals from their state, but they don't necessarily apply only to businesses in their state. So the California law, as of right now, if you buy, receive, or sell information of 50,000, or more California residences or residents, households, the like, the law will apply to you whether you're a California company or not. So one of the things, what businesses that are looking at this, one of the things they'll need to do is decide where they're going to be doing business, where they're going to be collecting data from, and whether it will apply. So I guess the short answer is assume that all this is coming and sort of build it in up front rather than react to it as it moves along.
Well, we appreciate your thoughts in the area. I know data privacy is an ongoing issue. We're speaking with Tom McNulty, attorney at Lando Anastasi. Tom, if someone wants to get hold of you and learn more about these pending laws or other laws like this that are affecting business, how would they find you?
They can get me at tmcnulty@lalaw.com, or they can give me a call at 617-395-7040.
Great. Thanks for being on Radio Entrepreneurs. We look forward to more of your reports in 2022. As we know, things are continuing to change. Remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.